Hello, how you doing? It's Phil Thatch, and today I'm going to be checking out a lens from TTArtisan. It's their 75mm f2 autofocus lens for full frame cameras. I think it's available for Sony and Nikon. I'm going to be using the Nikon version, and I'm going to test it out on my Nikon Z8 today. So let's take a look at the lens. Here it is, the 75mm f2. Feels like some of it is metal and some of it is plastic. I can't really tell for sure. It has a nice aperture ring, which honestly, I really don't care about aperture rings on lenses unless they're manual lenses that need an aperture lens, but this does have one if you like that sort of thing, and it is nicely clicked. Should be able to hear that. It also has an A position so you can control it from inside the camera, and that's how I would control it. But if you want to control it, your aperture from this ring on the lens, that's an option with this lens. This is interesting. This rear cap has electrical connections on the inside of it to connect to the electrical connections that normally would connect to your camera. And then on the outside of it, there is a USB-C port. So this lens, you can do firmware updates, which is pretty common these days for these Chinese lenses, third-party lenses, to have a USB-C port for firmware updates, but a lot of times they're on the lens. This time it's on the lens cap. So you just would connect it on there and then plug your USB-C cable in here, hook it up to your computer, and there's a website here in the little owner's manual that tells you where to go if you wanted to look for a firmware update. So that's pretty neat. So this lens has 9 aperture blades, and I was going to try to show you the aperture blades moving in and out. But even though this is a nice clicked aperture ring, it actually does not physically move the aperture blades. It must control them electronically. And right now we're not hooked up to anything, so they are not moving. Definitely have a nice metal lens mount here, so that's good. The lens feels good in my hand. It feels really nice. Comes with a pinch style 62mm lens cap. Definitely metal filter threads, and this plastic cap goes on there really nice. Definitely no issues with falling off with this one. One of my favorite things about the design of the lens is this cool lens hood. It's square and round at the same time. Let's see what it looks like on the lens. Oh yeah, that's definitely cool. This reminds me of something my friend David Sailors, who loves vintage lenses. It looks like a lens hood he would have on one of his lenses. Really cool. And it can be flipped backwards for storage. So I give it a 10 out of 10 on the lens hood for sure. Let's see what it looks like on my Z8. Clicks right into place, feels solid on there. Now this, you might find probably more people would use this on a little smaller camera than a Z8, maybe a Z6 III or a Z7. But I'm going to use it on my Z8, although it does look a little small on the front of my Z8. I do like the size of it for a 75mm, which is, you know, at the beginning of telephoto focal length. F2, which is nice and wide, it is nice and small, and I like that. It'll be discreet for a street photography lens. Maybe not on this big camera, but on a smaller camera it would. And again, it is a full frame lens, but you can use it on your DX or APS-C Nikon cameras. On an APS-C camera, it'll give you a field of view equivalent to 112.5 millimeters. Today I'll be using it on this full frame camera that it's designed for, and that is, of course, 75mm. The lens has 10 elements in 7 groups, and I think I already mentioned it, 9 aperture blades. It doesn't have a really close minimum focus distance. It's 0.75 meters, which converts to 2.46 feet. That is minimum focus distance right there. Like right there, it won't focus. Right there, it'll do it. And I have long arms. Like I say, I would like to have seen this a little closer. So I'm going to take it out on a photo walk today and see what kind of pictures I can get with it. I'm going to try to do a little bit of street photography maybe, and who knows what else. We'll see what I can find to photograph. Okay, so I went downtown with the TTArtisan lens, and the first place I went is I stopped by and talked to my good buddy Ray Soldano for a minute and said, hey, you mind if I take your picture? And he said, sure, go ahead. So this is wide open at f2, 1/800th of a second, and 800 ISO. Looks like Ray is nice and sharp, and the background is nicely out of focus. So at f2, this 75mm lens will give you nice subject separation. So that's probably what you're looking for in an f2 75mm lens, and it definitely can do it. Then I went a little bit further downtown and did some street photography. This shot, I liked it a lot, but I liked it even better when I cropped it to 3:1 aspect ratio. Here's a gentleman crossing the street. This is another wide open shot at f2. I think I probably should have shot this at 2.8 or maybe even 4, but it still looks pretty good at f2. This is 1/1000th of a second, f2, and ISO 80 of this gentleman crossing 8th Street in downtown Chattanooga. I went to one of the decorated alleys in Chattanooga and found something new. I haven't seen this suit of armor there before. Look, it's got guitar strings around its neck and shoulders. So I took this picture of it wide open at f2 and 1/1000th of a second. I've taken a picture of this broken light fixture on that same alley many times with various lenses, just to kind of see the subject separation you can get. And I think this lens has the most subject separation of any of the lenses I've tried, which does make sense. The second closest was a 70mm lens that was at f2, so this 75 should have a little more subject separation, and man, it is really out of focus in the background. This is wide open at f2 and 1/1000th of a second. Took a photograph of this snazzily dressed lady as she was walking down the road. This is another wide open shot at f2, and another one that I probably would have had better results at 2.8 or maybe even f4. Just a little sharper this lens is when you stop it down a little bit, and I'll show you that with a brick wall test a little later. I'm not sure what this young man did, but these two officers were having a nice conversation with him, trying to soothe the situation a little bit, it seemed like. And I really thought this shot came out cool. This is another wide open shot at f2. It's very backlit, and I thought the lens handled the backlit situation pretty good. This officer with the helmet on was riding this bicycle, and this officer without a helmet, I believe this is his patrol car over here. And anyway, it was kind of cool to catch this interaction with the TTArtisan 75 f2. After that, I met my wife for lunch. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and we were sitting in a booth that had some indirect sunlight coming in through the window. And so I made a picture of her with that sunlight on her face and all the TV screens that you'll see in a Buffalo Wild Wings out of focus in the background. This is f2 and 1/100th of a second, ISO 1100. I thought it turned out really nice. And then we swapped seats, and I let her take the same photograph of me. And this is the exact same settings, wide open at f2 and 1/100th and ISO 1100. A lot of great separation there, and it was cool to have good light on the subject with interesting light in the background. Then I went to a different location and found a brick wall that was kind of in the shade so I could have even light on it. This is wide open at f2, and let's go to 100%. I'll focus right here in the middle, and at 100%, it's sharp, but it definitely could be sharper. Let's see, let's stop it down to f2.8. Oh yeah, that definitely sharpened up nicely. So let's go back. This is f2, and right here is 2.8. Just a huge difference. I definitely should have been shooting at 2.8 during some of my shots on my photo walk today. I think they would have looked better. Now let's take a look at f4. This is f4. Back to 2.8, this is f4. It's definitely still sharp. I don't see much sharpness difference. Now we'll look at f5.6, still sharp. Now we'll look at f8, still sharp. Here is f11, still sharp. And this is f16. There should be some diffraction here, and I think it is a little less sharp than it is f11. But this lens is sharper, I believe, at f16 than it is wide open at f2. Let's see if there's any distortion in the lens. This line here in the brick wall seems like it is bending down towards the middle.
And this one seems like it's bending up towards the middle just a little bit. Not bad, but that's what's called pincushion distortion. So there's definitely some of that. Now let's check the vignetting. Definitely looks like the corners are darker than the center of the frame at f2, which is to be expected. At 2.8, it gets a little better. At f4, it's pretty close to even all the way across the frame. F5.6, it's virtually even all the way across the frame. Here's f8, very even. And there is f11 and f16. So if you don't want any vignetting, you probably need to be at least 5.6. But in a portrait lens, which this can kind of be considered a portrait lens, I like some natural vignetting. I think it makes the shot have a nice look, a little natural vignetting. I just wish it was a little sharper at f2. There's still some natural vignetting here at 2.8, and it's much sharper in the center at 2.8.
All right, thanks for watching my quick overview and photo walk with TTArtisan's 75mm f2 autofocus lens for full frame cameras from Nikon and Sony. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, take a second, reach down, hit thumbs up. If you want to see some more stuff like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.